Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and in today's episode of LR Live we are going to be fitting one of Optimill's integrated reverse camera number plate lamp units to the Defender 110. Let's get stuck in. So this is the product we're going to be looking at today from Optimill. It's a rear view camera that's housed inside a CNC machined number plate lamp housing. So regardless of whether you've got a 130, a 110 or even a 90, the Land Rover Defender is quite a big vehicle, and so manoeuvring it's not that easy. So a reversing camera does make a lot of sense, not just for manoeuvring and parking, but also if you're towing, it's easier to hitch up on the back if you've got a reversing camera that's pointing at the tow ball, and a lot of us do use our Defenders for towing. Now, Optimill is a UK company that make CNC machined parts for Land Rover Defenders, anything from mirror arms to hinges to door handles, and this number plate lamp. Now, they do the number plate lamp as a unit on its own, but they also do one with an integrated reversing camera. It's a really easy, simple thing to set up, and if you're thinking of buying one of these units, or if you've already bought one, this video should be really useful because the instructions possibly make it sound a lot more complicated than it is. It's a super easy fit. And the way the Defender's made, it's so easy to actually get all the wires and all the fixings put in place. So the kit is comprised of three elements really. You've got the number plate lamp housing, which has got the camera in it. You've got the loom, and then you've got the screen, which what they've decided to do is they've used one of these reversing mirrors that incorporates the screen. Now the great thing about that is it's so quick to actually show the image, and it's all linked to your reverse lights. I guess the first thing really is to remove your lamp assembly. So it's pretty easy, just remove the housing off the front of the unit itself, just undo that screw, and then that will give you access to these two bolts. Now there is a rubber seal around the outside of this housing that does make it a little bit difficult to get to these bolts, so just make sure you move those out of the way, and then literally you just undo them with an 8mm. Both sides of that should come off, and then you can just remove your unit. This connector here is quite easy to remove. You just push down this little tab, and then you'll find that you can just separate the two. You do get this piggyback loom included, so if you've got an earlier Defender, so that's like pre-TD5 really, you could use this piggyback loom, and that will actually you just separate your existing wiring connection for your reverse light, and you actually put this in there, and that will bridge the two connectors, and that gives you a very handy power out that you then connect to the camera. So all you're really doing is just feeding power to the camera itself. Now what I've actually done in mine, because I've got a different connector, and you can identify the lamp where the wiring for the lamp is, because it's the grommet that's nearest the door aperture, and you've obviously got a brown and green and a black neutral. Now what I've done is I've actually separated, exposed some wire on both the negative earth and the positive, and then I've wound my new loom for my connector for the camera. I've actually wound it round and soldered it in, and then insulated it with some tape. That in my mind is a better way of fitting it rather than using another connector, just because the more connectors you put in there, the more risk you've got of, you know, failures and disconnections and things like that. So that would be my recommendation. Just sort of try and do a hardwire install, and then you're good to go. So you've got basically from there your camera powered, and then you've also got from the camera attachment socket there, you've got that AV cable that goes all the way to the front of the vehicle. So with my camera installed, I've run the wire through that little gap there, over the top of the light, and then that just sits on top, and then I've fed the wire through the same aperture as the power feed for the lamp itself. So I've got two wires out of there now. I'm going to offer this up, so I've removed the bolts. They're in the same position as they would have been on the original unit, and I've given it a bit of a clean up. Not great to be honest, but that's the way it is. That's the camera wire, feed that through the hole, and then we've also got this connector. Will that go through as well? It should do, yeah. There we go, and we've got a foam gasket, so we shouldn't need the grommet, and then we're just going to get the bolts started. It looks to me like our camera's going to be pointing straight at the bar on our ladder. So it's a very nice shiny addition to the back of the Land Rover, and as I say, it's got a foam gasket on there, so make sure that's pulled through nice and tight, and that should disappear inside the housing. Now obviously it's a wide angle lens, so it is definitely going to pick up this bar, but I'm wondering if it's close enough that it won't obscure too much. We'll have to have a look and find out. Initially when I got the unit, I thought it's just way too big, it's not going to look right, but actually it doesn't look out of place at all. So yeah, Really pleased with that. So old connector and new connector, they appear to be exactly the same. So let's just plug that in, plug and play, I hope. So we'll get our camera connection and just connect it together. There we go, and we're in. So that is all of our wiring. Now I've run the cable up here. Now you see I have removed our trim, which I'll put back as well. But I'm just going to check we've still got a lamp. So we do indeed have LEDs. Right, now we've got everything tested and it's all showing good. I need to replace the cover in here. So in one box you get your reversing mirror, and this is what's got the screen in there. And you'll see on the back here you've got these three little buttons. You press the middle one to select the menu. You just keep cycling through that. It'll go to contrast, size, brightness, and then you can do the adjustments as these two above and below here. So that's fairly easy how to do adjustments. You've got this spring-loaded clamp that will actually clip onto your existing rear view mirror, and that's pretty much it. So that's how that goes in place. Now the other thing you get in the box is this power wire that goes into the red lead there, and then you have to connect this to an earth and an ignition live, which you can pull from a piggyback off your fuse box. So that's pretty much how you get the actual mirror powered up itself, and that leaves you with two remaining connections. The white one we don't use, the yellow one is the one that receives the AV feed. So we've got a little loom that comes off the mirror, and that is for power, a connector for the video, and then the white one which we don't use. So we need to connect the video up. So what we've done is we piggybacked off our cigar fuse point on the fuse box, and we've run this wire, and because we've got our stereo unit at the top here in the console, we've run a wire all along the dash, up the A pillar and across our center console. Now you could just run that wire under the headliner and then through into where your interior light is. It'd be the same thing. Now that will give you a live, which is this red wire here. So what I've done is I've just teed off that because that's powering our head unit, and I also want it to power the camera. So we've then taken power off that. We've used an earth that was there for our interior light, which is fine, and then we've just run this cable here. So we then just have to plug this in to the power for the mirror, and you're good to go. Now this wire here that's attached at the other end of the video cable, that is if you've got a fly reverse wire somewhere in your dash. So some newer cars, it's just a standard generic loom, you see. So some cars will have a little switch on the gearbox perhaps, where it sends a signal to that light. So if you didn't want to run off the rear light and you wanted to run off the switch on the gearbox, you could do that. You just got to connect it to that separately. So, but that is a much more complicated situation. So that's our standard mirror, and then we've got our replacement, which just clips on top like that. So you can see there how crisp our mirror is. Now if I turn the ignition on, knock it into reverse, and I should have an image. There we go. So you can adjust the settings on this unit. So I've adjusted the contrast and the brightness down to 0, and that's given me a much clearer picture. It's much more accurate as to what's outside. It's not bleached out anymore. It looks really good. I think I'm just going to have to zip off that bar, and I have got my angle grinder with me. Let's do it. I'm just going to touch these up with some Raptor to make sure they don't rust, but actually it looks really nice and clean. So yeah, pleased with that. And what's important is the orientation of the actual lens itself. So you have to have the adjustment aperture at the very top. It's a nice subtle addition, and do you know what? I just realised that matches perfectly with our fuel cap. Tidy. So guys, hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight as to how to fit that Optimill rear view camera. I think it's a really nice bit of kit. It's not massively expensive when you consider everything that you get in the kit, and it works really quickly. As I said before, you know, the wireless camera system I've got in my Disco 3, you literally have to wait for about 5 seconds before the image comes up, which I know doesn't sound very long, but if you've got people behind you and you're wanting to reverse and stuff, it's just a pain, whereas this one's instant. So yeah, there's a little product for you. Hopefully that's given you some idea of how to fit it and given you an idea that whether or not you'd like that on your Defender. But for now, please do give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and I'll catch you on the next one.